Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Well, Alan Jackson, Karen Reed, hey y'all, hey Susan Hicks. We're talking about them today. He's put out he's desperately trying to find some corruption since an independent investigation that looked into this case found no corruption. The federal government who looked into this case found no corruption. He's gonna be a one-man band and find it all by himself. That's how I see this story. He's calling out the police commissioner for something the police commissioner said to a journalist, and equating it to the same standards we have for lying under oath or some kind of Brady violation. I mean, like that there was some, it is so confused. It sounds all official and important until you actually take it apart. So we're going to look at that today. Tomorrow, I have Tom Murtati, civil super lawyer. What an incredible lawyer he is, coming on to talk about Karen Reed's chances of adding all these parties and being both a plaintiff and a defendant in her civil trial. What are the chances of that? Damon Seligson, Karen Reed's South African lawyer, says that they're going to file that ridiculous motion with a list of people as long as your arm to bring in. I mean, you know what it's really like? It's really like me saying, defending myself like I'm a doctor. Say I'm a doctor, I'm defending myself in a civil trial for malpractice and saying, you know what? I have problems. I have issues. I'd like to include the people that designed the building. It has nothing to do with my malpractice case, but I don't like coming in. This building's so ugly. I don't like coming in. Let me bring in, my mental health was affected by how ugly the building I'm working in. Let's bring in the architects of the hospital into this. And I'm going to sue them while I'm defending myself. I mean, apparently, if she succeeds on this, I mean, already the chances are so slim that the O'Keeffes are going to win this civil trial the way it's going. Everything's going now. I mean, I understand that the burden is lower. All these things that would be normal in regular life, all the evidence points to her guilt. That the burden is much lower. All these things would be a slam dunk had there not been an innocence fraud campaign. And then once you get in these innocence fraud campaigns, now everything's been turned on its head. So now we're in an opposite world. And if they get jurors that are touched by this innocence fraud campaign and have fallen for it, it's going to be very hard for the O'Keeffes to get justice. And there are things that they can do that are, if her lawyers want to reach out to me just to chat, feel free, robertaglass23 at gmail. Fighting an innocence fraud campaign is a very specific thing and has to be done a very specific way. But they look like they want to add on. It's not going to be won by adding on BB Fell, this California glamazon attorney. I will tell you that. I think that's probably one of the worst decisions that they've made so far. I understand she has a lot of experience in this area. But Karen Read does not win in court because her lawyers are so good or that she has so many of them. She wins in court because they are willing to go above and beyond the bounds of the law. And I can say that without fear of getting sued because Karen Read's lawyers were sanctioned in open court last trial for their lack of candor on the court. Now, that's a euphemism. Now, what does that euphemism mean? It means they lied to the court. They were involved in a fraud upon the court. They all knowingly, willingly lied. That's what Judge Cannoni, essentially, she can soften it because she's an innocent fraudster herself, but that's what that means. And she demanded that they not lie to the court anymore. And then within 10 minutes of that sanction, or that, I don't know if it was officially what do you call it? It's more an admonition. They're lying to her again. So, she was a joke as a judge. She was walked all over. She was basically, I considered her another wing of the defense. She was so weak in this case. This civil judge is a lot stronger. Will he find out tomorrow? I'm curious. I don't know the answer to it. I've sent Tom Murtati a whole bunch of stuff about the civil trial. I'm curious to hear what he has to say. Tune in tomorrow at 6. We're going to be doing it live. What he has to say about everything. You won't get a smarter civil lawyer than Tom. So very curious to hear what he has to say. I fear that he's going to be like, this is reasonable. This is reasonable to bring in all these other people, to bring in Jen McCabe and Michael Proctor and Buchanan. Like, oh, we do this all the time. That's maybe when we will find out that this is done all the time in civil court. Certainly didn't seem like it at the hearing. The judge was like, this is a novel approach or something like that. Something to that effect, I think he said. Yeah. So I'm not all that optimistic right now as to the chances for the O'Keefe family. But anybody, again, I'm going to make another public call out for Elizabeth, Karen Read's sister. She wants to talk behind the scenes confidentially. Roberta Glass 23, Victoria Crisp, the Sullivan sisters, Marietta, Laura Sullivan, reach out to me. There's questions that I think that they can answer that need to be answered and need to be put out into the public domain. So let's look at starting off with Channel Boston News, their coverage of this shocker from Alan Jackson, this letter. Let's take a look at the news reporting on it.
breaking developments in the aftermath of the Karen Reed case. Investigative reporter Ted Daniel joining us now. Ted, as we first reported just 30 minutes ago, this has to do with Boston police.
Rachel, 25 Investigates has a copy of a letter Karen Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, sent to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu and the head of the Post Commission. The letter is scathing. In it, Reed's defense team calls out the head of the Boston Police Department.
I have nothing to do with Karen Reed. Matter of fact, I didn't even know this person was associated with a Karen Reed.
The letter talks about comments Commissioner Michael Cox made to reporters about Reed and then Boston police officer Kelly Deborah, who testified in Reed's retrial. Deborah spoke about a meeting she had with Cox prior to her testimony.
But, you know, it's interesting. In Alan Jackson's letter, he never says where the statement was made. So it's like you could infer from his letter, and my computer is acting up, so please forgive me once again. Maybe Maestro will, if he's around, will help me try to fix it once more. It's so frustrating. But in his letter, in Alan Jackson's letter, when you look at it, you could think that he means, he means that he could have been making the statement under oath in a court of law. You know, I mean, there's no punishment. Is there for a public official lying to a news reporter? Is there? I mean, lying under oath, okay. It's distasteful for his job, but I don't know. I mean, so let me read you Alan Jackson's actual letter. Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox has been caught in a lie. Do you think that they were influenced at all by my David Yannetti song? Lying lawyers that lie. Do you think that at all influenced them in this? And not a small one. On July 10th, 2025, Commissioner Cox publicly denied any connection to the Karen Reed case or to Officer Kelly Dever. Well, Alan Jackson, you told Billy Bush that you won this case twice. That you won Karen Reed's case twice. How is that possible? How is a hung jury a win? Isn't that a rather big lie for a lawyer who should know better? Do you want us to go through all your lies? He was asked about the allegation that he met with Dever before she was, Kelly Dever. He was asked about the allegation that he met with Dever before she was called to testify in the first Karen Reed trial in 2024. And then he told her to do the right thing. In his unequivocal denial, Cox stated, "I have nothing to do with Karen Reed. Matter of fact, I don't even know this person was associated with the Karen Reed case. I didn't know Dever was even associated with that case. I was struck like, what do I have to do with the Karen Reed case? I never said these words together. So the fact is, it's much to do about nothing." Okay. So he publicly amazingly didn't want to be harassed by an onslaught of Karen Reed's murderer groupies. And her innocence fraud Pied Piper, known as Aidan Carney. These statements were false, patently false. Commissioner Cox, the head of the Boston Police Department, actually asked, guys, what do I have to do with the Karen Reed case? The answer is obvious. One of his officers was dead, murdered by Karen Reed, Alan Jackson, and you know that. And the victim's body was discovered in the front yard of another Boston police officer. Yeah, Karen Reed clipped John O'Keefe with her car as he got out in front of another police officer's home, and that's where his body landed. I love how they make it so like he was found in the front yard. Yeah. Where they were going to socialize after the bars closed. And Karen Reed decided to reverse into John O'Keefe over 60 plus yards space with her foot 75% down on the gas pedal. And why I bring that up always is it's such an indication that she wasn't doing it by accident. When have you ever reversed in that fashion with your foot that far down? Like, that's flooring it. In speeds of 24 mile an hour going forward don't seem very fast, but backwards it's pretty fast. And why she didn't want to reverse into him and hit him head on is because if you hit someone in the rear view going backwards, you can always say, oh, I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. And Karen Reed benefited from people on this side saying she was either so drunk or she didn't know. It'd be hard for her not to know. She told her father she felt she hit something. She knew she clipped him, and she left him there. For the commissioner to suggest that he had nothing to do with that case defies both logic and leadership. Common sense tells us that he had everything to do with it. Nearly obtained evidence proves that Cox knowingly misrepresented his involvement. On April 22nd, 2024, the FBI's Boston field office sent Commissioner Cox an email explicitly referring to Deaver and the Reed investigation. The email from Assistant Special Agent in charge Stephen Kelcher to Cox stated, just a reminder, the documents were released to the DA's office late last night. The officer we spoke about is Kelly Deaver. The next day, February 23rd, 2024, at 11 a.m., Cox's official calendar lists a meeting with Officer Kelly Deaver, exactly as Deaver would later testify and Cox would deny. The timeline is indisputable. I don't think he denied that he met with her. I think he just denied that that meeting had to do with the Karen Reed case. I didn't hear a denial here. Let's listen to it again. Let's hear it one more time. Okay.
Trial. Deborah spoke about a meeting she had with Cox prior to her testimony. Cox was asked about all of this in July.
I didn't know she was even associated with that case. So, I don't know. I was struck, like, what do I have to do with the Karen Reed race? I never have said those words together. And so the fact is, it's much to do about nothing.
Jackson's letter states that Cox has been caught in a lie, and not a small one, adding, for the commissioner to suggest that he had nothing to do with the Reed case and Deborah defies both.
Oh, is it Deborah, not Deaver? All right. Kelly Dever. All right. Back. But he didn't deny meeting with her. Just a reminder, the documents were released to the DA's office late last night. Okay. Cox televised claim that he had nothing to do with Karen Reed and didn't even know this person, Kelly Dever, who was associated with the Karen Reed case, was a bald-faced lie, one now disproven by documentary evidence originating from the FBI investigation itself. Really? Why don't you release the whole investigation? Or did you communicate with the FBI, Alan Jackson, via the Signal app? I mean, why did the FBI or the why did the federal investigation in this case, how did they come to use Daniel Wolf who openly, speaking of a lie, he openly lied on the stand in the first trial, said he wasn't being paid, said he had never met you before then or talked to you when you guys were in touch, clearly. He said he wasn't being paid. When he was, he lied to the jury, lied under oath. And then in the second trial, he got rid of all of his communications so that there couldn't be any discovery in the case. All his text messages and emails. No one had any discovery for the prosecution from this trusted, what Karen Reed supporters say are just the most trustworthy source. I mean, how did the federal investigation hire these people? I mean, are we ever going to really learn like the real connections between the feds and Karen Reed's defense team? Because speaking of another wing of the defense, so how did Karen Reed get off? With a lot of fraud and a lot of help.
Both logic and leadership. Jackson points to an email Cox received in 2024 from a Boston FBI agent about the Reed investigation. That letter directly references then-Officer Kelly Dever. Jackson also references Cox's official calendar, which lists a meeting with Dever. Dever confirmed that meeting on the stand. Deborah also testified that she was mistaken when she told FBI agents that she saw two people near Karen Reed's Lexus in the Canton police garage for a, quote, wildly long time.
It was a distorted memory, therefore I can't state it because at this point it would be a lie.
So Jackson wants Post, the agency that oversees police officers in Massachusetts, to launch an investigation.
Oh, yeah, this guy, hold on. I just want to show you anything that Ted Daniels has to say about it. I'm not all that interested in hearing, but that's essentially the story in a nutshell. But channel WCVB at the end of their report, let's just look at their report. They essentially have the same thing. They bring in a judge. I don't think he's on the bench any longer, but everybody's disappointed in his take. But he sounds skeptical, strangely skeptical of Karen Reed's lying lawyer's claims. He's skeptical of the tiny man himself. Is this? Okay, there we go.
Testified during the Reed trial. Reed says that officer changed her story on the stand.
When she was called into the commissioner's office, the story completely changed and it was recanted.
Make no mistake, lead defense counsel in the Karen Reed trial.
So she thought she might have seen. Deborah got, I think, possibly bamboozled by the innocence fraud campaign, possibly just was mistaken. On her own, came up with this idea on her own that Brian Higgins was in the Sallyport that night. So, or Proctor was in the Sallyport. I can't remember who it was. Was it Proctor or Higgins? Help me out. I thought it was Higgins for some reason. Higgins in the Sallyport that night, and they showed that he couldn't have been messing with the car. And it's not a distorted memory. She thought that might have been the day when she saw him. Maybe it was a different day. The memory's not distorted. She just got her times wrong. Do you see how language is so important in these cases? Anyway, here's James Barretto. He's a retired judge, and he's skeptical of Alan Jackson and this whole publicity
is
stuff.
Making a very serious charge against the Boston Police Commissioner.
Retired Massachusetts Judge James Barretto says Reed's lawyer is asking for two different things: adding Commissioner Cox to the Brady list, a list of police officers whose credibility and conduct has been reasonably questioned in the past, and launching an investigation.
The Brady list. So Brady claims means that you didn't hand over something that could have been helpful for the defense, which is so ironic in this case because the trick of the defense attorneys in the Karen Reed trial, both trial 1 and trial 2, was to totally ambush the prosecution by never handing over discovery. And so we would have, as punishment to the team, we would have voir dire after voir dire of the witnesses because discovery obligations hadn't been met. And they said that they were putting on witnesses because Daniel Wolf, etc., was in Rentschler, the two accident reconstructionists were originally hired by the federal investigation. Why they were hired, we don't know. And they only wanted, they only wanted information about the crime from the defense. Strangely, they never asked for any information from the prosecution. That should raise an eyebrow. Why they were so biased from the start. I mean, it seemed like they had a directive in the way that they went about their quote unquote, totally unbiased investigation. But they would say that we have no discovery for Marie Russell, the dog bite expert. They had to voir dire her. No discovery for the ARCA witnesses, Daniel Wolf and Rentschler. And that continued on. And then in the second trial, we had to do those voir dires again because not only did that they weren't, it wasn't that the discovery didn't exist, like they said in the first trial. The second trial was all destroyed. No one had any copies of text messages or emails because they were all communicating on Signal, on auto delete. That's not sus at all for a lawyer to do that. I mean, it was so criminal. So Brady violations are a favorite of the wrongful conviction movement to overturn convictions. So, but it has to be, so not only do they have to violate discovery, but it has to be deemed useful to the defense in some way. So say you hand over a report of a hat. The gentleman was wearing a hat, and you can't say, well, you didn't say it was a purple hat or something that doesn't matter. Relevant information is not a Brady violation, but they use these Brady violations all the time as ways to say that somehow the investigation was corrupt or not trustworthy. I mean, it's essentially a technicality. If they can overturn a conviction on a technicality, they will claim the police officers are corrupt. And this Brady list, to my view, seems like another tool of fraudulent lawyers who want to get killers off. I mean, why would we need a list? Why do people need to be, warned about other officers? If they're working, shouldn't a Brady violation be so egregious that they should at least lose their job? Why do we even need a Brady list? So it's just a nonsense thing. I don't even know who makes the Brady list, if it's a real thing, who keeps it. I always thought, I mean, if you look up a Brady, it looks like it's haphazardly put together by Karen Reed fans. So I mean, they just list a huge name. Is there somewhere an official Brady list somewhere? Is there such a thing in Massachusetts as an official Brady list? I have no idea.
By a statewide police standards commission into Cox's behavior.
Well, the allegations are serious, no question. But like any allegation, they have to be supported by evidence, and they're entitled to due process, which means a hearing, an evidentiary hearing, and again, they must be measured against a certain standard of proof.
Now, we have reached out to Boston Police and the mayor's office for comment, but haven't heard back. I've also reached out to Karen Reed's attorney to see if he submitted his own complaint about Commissioner Cox, but haven't heard back from him either.
Right. So it's like, let's look at this. We haven't seen proof. Essentially, what the judge is cleverly doing is he's saying, well, why shouldn't Commissioner Cox have his due process? Why are you all saying he's guilty of this before there's any kind of examination of the evidence in the process? You say you have this. We've seen the interview, but we also don't know what that meeting was about, really what the details of that meeting were. And what what was the ramifications of him lying to the media? Who cares? He wasn't on the stand. It had nothing to do with Karen Reed being convicted or not convicted. So what does it matter? Thank you, Susan Hicks. The Brady rule was established in 1963. Yeah, it's a good rule. I'm just saying it's used to they stretch it to its utmost. Does everybody get that? So they will overturn convictions on things that really don't matter, really were totally inconsequential to the defense. Not being turned over. And they also use it as a way, once they can get a Brady violation like affirmed by the judge or determined to be a violation of Brady by the judge, then they can go on to accuse the officers of some kind of morally reprehensible character or behavior. So this is just some more nonsense from Alan Jackson, but just curious that this is coming from this team. I mean, this team does this team really want to start talking about lies? And when they were called out by the judge, I mean, let me see. Let me take a quick break. When we get back from the break, looking back at some of the defenses. Actually, you know what? This would be like a really good time. Let me see if I still have it. Be fun to take a break with this song. Here's my tribute to Alan Jackson.
Criminal spout, legalese, lying by profession. When in doubt, blame the police. When my con gets exposed, I act deaf and dumb. Blame sudden onset amnesia, got the press under my criminal lawyer. Think like a criminal, spout legalese. Lying by profession. When in doubt, blame the police. When my con gets exposed, I act deaf and dumb. Blame sudden onset amnesia. Got the press under my thumb. Drinks with my killer client at Smith and Walensky. Check paid for by fans. My elbow on the killer's knee.
Okay, here we go. So this is from Karen Reed. Does anybody remember when Karen Reed's legal team was caught in a lie before the second trial? And a massive lie. Like, this could have a lie with serious consequences. First, she could have got acquitted on the ARCA witnesses' lies. They could have, or she could have gotten convicted, and that was the thing. Oh, well, these non-biased witnesses wouldn't lie, that aren't getting paid, that have no connection to the defense team, that could have been used by the Commonwealth. All lies put out by the defense. Anybody remember this? When Judge Cannoni called them out in open court after a hearing, after their due process, after they said over and over that they didn't lie to the court, that there's been a lack of candor. What does lack of candor mean? It's a polite way of saying they all lied. It wasn't very forthcoming with information. So they do that on purpose. So they're hiding their own discovery on purpose, I believe, to sandbag the Commonwealth. And still to this day, Hank Brennan is still complaining about not receiving discovery from the defense. So all that's really important. So Hank Brennan drops that not only were ARCA paid $23,925, they were retained, hired, colluded. The defense lawyers, Karen Reed's defense lawyers, crafted their testimony. They could not have lied to the judge and the public more, but here where it's really important is lying to the court. And they lied over and over again. And to the jury. I'm just interrupting myself in a very meta moment. But they also lied to the jury. No punishment. It's ethical violation of the highest order. No punishment for these lying criminal lawyers. Even after Hank Brennan dropped the bomb, they lie in a motion, and Judge Cannoni brings that up. So let's take a look. So here's the hearing where Judge Cannoni is going to decide on sanctions. So they could be, my understanding is they could be disbarred, they could be thrown off the case. I mean, this is a major no-no for lawyers to get caught lying to the court. Let's take a look at it.
Employees of ARCA. So I think I told counsel before that I had reviewed. So first we had full hearing from counsel. I heard from the lawyers. I heard from Mr. Alessi on behalf of the lawyers. I've read the transcripts. I've listened to the sidebar conference and read that transcript. And I've certainly read the pleadings. So based on all the evidence, I conclude that there has not been the candor required of all lawyers has not been demonstrated here. I find that there have been repeated misrepresentations made to the court by defense counsel, and I conclude that they were deliberate.
Deliberate misrepresentations. What's that? What's a deliberate misrepresentation? That's called a lie. This is the thing I really hate the most about our legal system. So we get this kind of language that really obscures the truth. They lied to the court. It was a fraud. It was a fraud upon the court. That's what she's talking about. A fraud upon the court. Repeated, not just one lie. Wasn't done by act over and over and over again. So they want to talk about what officer, the police commissioner says to a film, to TV crew that has no consequence whatsoever to anything. That matters not at all. Why, if it was so important what the police commissioner said, why didn't you take him as your witness? The way you took Kelly Dever as your witness. Why didn't you bring him in as your witness to talk about that meeting? Because it was so inconsequential. You didn't have very many, Karen Reed's defense lawyers, you didn't have very many witnesses. It's not like you didn't have the time. It's totally inconsequential to anything and unimportant to anything. Whether or not he met with Kelly Dever. Who cares? I mean, maybe you're just regretting not bringing in Commissioner Cox and putting him on the stand and making him look like a liar and making them look like there's some kind of police corruption because he wants to avoid the wrath of Karen Reed's murderer groupies.
Concerning the relationship with the ACA witnesses. They were made at sidebar, in open court, and in pleadings. And I think the record.
So these are, she calls them lack of candor, misrepresentations, but let's call them what they are. Lies. They lied to the court over and over and over and over again to win. That's why they were lying, so they could win their case. Because, so everybody who says that, you know, Alan Jackson and David Yannetti are such great lawyers, if they are such great lawyers, why can't they win their case by lawyering? Why do they have to cheat to win? I mean, it's really like saying Armstrong was the greatest cyclist of all time. Certainly well paid, certainly famous, but actual skill without cheating? I don't know.
The record is pretty clear, and I find that on July 25th, 2024, payment was made to the ACA witnesses. Yet on February 26, 2025, in a pleading written by Ms. Little, signed by all three defense counsel, says the Commonwealth's motion to exclude these exculpatory expert witnesses, ACA witnesses, who were not hired or paid for by the defense, is not made in good faith and is a desperate and transparent attempt.
So when you accuse another lawyer of not acting in good faith, you're accusing them of being shady. This is the defense's own words. Now she's reading the defense motion from I believe it's the 25th or 26th of February. This is after it's dropped, all these communications between ARCA, the payment of ARCA, they're still accusing the Commonwealth of doing the things that they're doing. They're saying you're only trying to exclude these witnesses because you're trying to get neutral, unbiased witnesses from the jury's ears, you know. Let me reflect. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate your support.
To keep exculpatory testimony of neutral expert witnesses from reaching the jury in this case. The next page.
Right? Did everybody get that? This is not done in good faith. The reason you want to exclude these ARCA witnesses is not because they're not neutral witnesses. It's not because we've lied to the court about their neutrality and how we hired them in our communications with them and hid our communications and our payment from the court, especially the Commonwealth and the judge. I mean, the Commonwealth and the judge and the public and the jury. Let's not forget the first jury. Had Karen Reed been acquitted, and this came out after she was acquitted, there would be no remedy for it. Karen Reed, you couldn't try her again, even though she was tried fraudulently. She was acquitted fraudulently. There's no remedy for that. And they know that.
Ironically, the Commonwealth accuses the defendant of failing to comply with her discovery obligations while conceding that the information is not in her care, custody, or control. Moreover, here,
and there's a very curious point that Hank Brennan makes about the release of the ARCA discovery. Hank Brennan says this is the only discovery he's gotten in this case is the ARCA discovery. And they just released the defense a huge witness list today. They did the same thing last time, and they called very few people. So I don't know what if this is a similar game plan, that they said that they would have weeks and weeks of testimony for the defense and they had days. That's how it went last time. But I am curious with the ARCA witnesses, a curious part in Hank Brennan's filing about ARCA is he got this discovery just as there was a change in guard at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the office that started this federal investigation had a change in staff, and that's when he got the discovery. And initially in court, he said he got this discovery from the feds. So he connected it to the feds when the defense says, oh no, we handed it over. So you have to ask yourself, a rational person has to ask, was there an agreement between the feds and the defense to not release the discovery until they had resigned from their positions? And it is still unknown, and this is the way Hank Brennan wrote about it, or the Commonwealth wrote about it in their filing. It's still unknown the relationship between Karen Reed and the federal investigation. That's the big mystery. And in the old days, I would think there would be some gumshoe detective pacing, hitting the pavement and trying to get an answer as to what the relationship between Karen Reed and the federal investigation was. Why was it started? It's not so it's Karen Reed and her lawyers have a lot of gall. So it doesn't surprise me that they went to the feds. What surprises me is that the feds took them up on this investigation. What did they tell them? And why was it started? Was it started because of personal relationships? Were there promises offered? How dirty does it get? Again, some of the hidden conspiracies in this case that no one's really talking about and no one can get to the bottom of.
The defense has gone above and beyond its reciprocal discovery obligations and has already satisfied all of its mandatory discovery obligations under Rule 14 and turned over all additional information in the control and custody of the defense relating to the ARCA witnesses as ordered by the court. So I find or conclude that that was a material misrepresentation and that it was deliberate. So I find that there is a flagrant violation of the Rule 14 obligations. And before I decide which sanctions are appropriate, I need to see defense.
Yeah, I need to talk to you. I need you to talk to you so you can lie to me some more. I mean, this was what was appropriate, just a chewing out. And don't do it again. But it's not just a violation of Rule 14. It's a fraud upon the court. It's their Judge Cannone is really minimizing it. Because it's really, in some ways, inconsequential what they're misrepresenting. They're lying to the court, and they lied to the jury. I mean, this thing had been going on for like a year. It wasn't like, oh, you're not handing over discovery, just discovery. You're misrepresenting your relationships with your witnesses to get your client off. You're pretending you're, to the jury that your witnesses are not paid and that you have no relationship with them. And to really cover up how biased the ARCA witnesses were, you shredded, essentially, all of your text messages and emails with them. This is such an outrageous case of fraud upon the court from these lawyers that they want to talk about this now, this freaking police commissioner's inconsequential statement. Give me a break. The fact that so many lawyers are willing to, a lot of them are YouTube lawyers, which are some of the worst variety. But so many of these lawyers are willing to collaborate, big up, high five Alan Jackson, David Yannetti for all their great work in the Karen Reed case. Makes me think that there should be investigation into them. Don't tell me Alan Jackson and David Yannetti are the only ones doing these regular frauds upon the court. It's like a crisis in our country. We have lawyers running around acting like criminals. And what can you do? We can report them to the bar. And then we're going to have other lying lawyers look at these frauds upon the court and make a determination of it. When lawyers get disbarred is often when they do a serious crime, like, serious crime of which when they're going to prison or they're already in prison and they have a hearing and they get disbarred, or it's something that it's like it has to do with payment of clients. That's a very easy way. But this kind of stuff, we never see anyone disbarred on this kind of stuff, which is the real consequential stuff as to how our justice system operates. So that's what I have to say about that. Today, it's just more trying to make Karen Reed look like a victim of some kind of corruption that really didn't happen. If anything, she was the benefit of police who underestimated her and thought this was a open and shut case of hit and run. and didn't interview a lot of the key, I don't know if they were key, but it was witnesses. Or they weren't thinking outside the box, and they weren't really working to nail down every lead. Like, for example, Richie the plumber. I don't think they ever got Karen Reed's laptop. But why weren't they, when that's the last thing they're fighting about that night? Why didn't anyone look at Karen Reed's phone and say, are there any text messages to Richie the plumber? This is the last thing they're fighting about. Once Michael Camerano tells the police John O'Keefe was upset because Karen Reed had a plumber over at 8 o'clock at night. I mean, really starting earlier than that, starting more like 7:25, according to Karen Reed, and didn't ask John to fix her plumbing issue. He was angry about that. Why didn't they go try to see what the truth surrounding that plumber was? Why didn't they talk to the plumber since he was in Karen Reed's home? It might have had, if Richie the plumber exists, he might have some insight into Karen Reed's state of mind that night. Was she drinking before she left? Might be good to know. But it was never done. So, spare me the she was a victim of pin it on the girl nonsense. No one wanted to pin it on the adjunct finance professor. Believe me. No one was looking to pin anything on Karen Reed. It's just unfortunately her smashed to smithereens taillight was all over the scene. She was making admissions. I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. She somehow knew that something had happened to John O'Keefe when everyone else would think, well, he just slept it off at a friend's house, or maybe he stayed over at the Alberts since he didn't have a ride home. It's very interesting that the first people she calls are Michael Camerano and Catherine Camerano that morning. And in her last text messages, so when I say last, I mean that day. So in the text messages on the 28th, Karen Reed is telling John O'Keefe that Michael Camerano has gone off on her, like doesn't like her. Yet all we heard about in trial, at least the first trial, was we all liked Karen. Did everyone like Karen? Really? Or were people fooled by her? And was Michael Camerano starting to see some of the Karen Reed's coercively controlling and abusive behavior towards John O'Keefe? But it seemed like she wanted to, her mark was Michael Camerano and Catherine Camerano. Was that because she wanted to bring Michael Camerano to the scene and then point the finger at him like she did Jen McCabe? And did she know that he had the kind of personality that would say the least about anything incriminating she would say in order to just put his head down? Did she know he was devious like that? Where he would just say the bare minimum and get off the stand and cause the least amount of waves because he was looking after number one himself. And John O'Keefe was dead. He was a nice friend while he was alive, but his real duty was to, not to the truth, not to his murdered friend, but to himself and his family. And Catherine Camerano, I think, is even worse than Michael Camerano. With her, everyone else that morning who got phone calls from Karen Reed heard incriminating statements. I mean, picked up. Michael Camerano didn't pick up. But everyone who picked up the phone and got Karen Reed on the other end of the line that morning heard some form of incriminating statements. But strangely, Catherine Camerano, all she hears is a whole lot of yelling. And she was saved by working. But, I mean, with friends like those, I mean, who needs enemies? Eva says, Roberta, thanks for being as outraged as I and many still are about this case. Biggest fraud on the legal system. Yeah, it is. I thank you for being outraged, Eva. You know, free Karen readers don't even know this happened in court. I don't know what they were. Some of them are so brainwashed that they watch that hearing and it like goes in one ear and out the other. Like, well, you know, the free Karen Read YouTubers aren't going to really hone down and explore what lack of candor in the court means and what all that meant and all their lies. I've had to say, they go, no, they didn't get called out for lying to the court. Oh, yes, they did. Oh, yes, they did. A lot of free Karen readers aren't even aware that that happened. They watch their innocence fraud propaganda and, you know, they're going to be the last ones to learn they're duped. That's what I always say about them. And that's from someone who has been fooled by innocence fraud campaigns. Me, you know, not like they're good. Some of them are good. Some of them are convincing. Some of these killers are very convincing. And they use an appeal to authority and people, the amount of people that will come to these psychopaths' aids is incredible. So that's what I have for today, guys. Tomorrow, don't miss tomorrow. I think it's going to be really interesting. Tom Murtati's coming on. Always a pleasure to talk to him. He is a lawyer, civil lawyer who represented, I hope I get this right, the town of Potsdam. Nick Hillary's, who was the accused killer of Garrett Phillips. My opinion is he was the killer of Garrett Phillips. He represented the town of Potsdam against Nick Hillary, and that they eventually won. But he did the most incredible depositions of Nick Hillary. So he's very bright and has a lot of experience in civil. As a civil attorney on both sides, both the plaintiff and the defendant side, winning big multi-million-dollar judgments. So that he's coming on tomorrow. We're going to talk about Karen Read and her prospects of bamboozling our civil court, which is a court which is much more easily manipulated. Our civil courts, it doesn't have the same bar, but we'll see. We'll see if she's going to add in all these other. If she's going to be both essentially a plaintiff and a defendant in the O'Keefe's case of wrongful death and emotional suffering. So far, the rulings have not, rulings have not gone her way. She had one puny little charge thrown out and the stronger charge kept in that case. So things are not really going her way in the civil case, despite her seven attorneys representing her. Have a great night, everyone. See you tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow at 6. Tom Murtati's showing up to talk about Karen Reid's civil case. Have a great night, everyone. Please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Support the channel. Links are in the description of this episode. You can buy me a coffee, Venmo, Patreon. All great ways to support the channel. See you tomorrow at 6.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, carry, gin, gin. Like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Hit. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.